Tonight, a Scarborough Country special report. Airline security, how safe are we? Our nation's on an elevated alert. Security tightened at airports, and passengers fear terror in the skies. So how would you feel if this happened on your flight? 14 Middle Eastern men using one-way tickets to get on a plane from Detroit to Los Angeles, and they behave suspiciously. They repeatedly walk up and down the aisle of the plane. They gather in groups of 3 and 4, and they spend an unusual amount of time in the restrooms. And as the flight prepares to land, several of them rise from their seats in unison. The FBI says everything worked as it should. The plane landed safely. It was met at the gate by authorities. The men were interviewed by the FBI, cleared, and let go. So what exactly happened on that flight? Tonight, we're going to be bringing you the chilling first-hand account from 2 passengers aboard that plane. We're also going to hear what the FBI says. And we'll look at the state of airline security with our aviation experts. Next on this Scarborough Country special report.
From the press room to the courtroom to the halls of Congress, Joe Scarborough has seen it all. Welcome to Scarborough Country.
Hey, welcome to Scarborough Country. You know, we learned about this amazing story when a first-person account appeared from journalist Annie Jacobsen on the webzine womenswallstreet.com. Jacobsen's story can bring us all to a closer examination of the status of aviation security almost 3 years after the September 11th tragedy. What can passengers do to protect themselves aboard a flight if they see suspicious activity? And how much is being done by officials on board that passengers may be unaware of? Jacobsen and her husband, along with their young son, boarded a Northwest Airlines flight bound for LAX. What happened next may concern you as you listen to the Jacobsens tell their story. And ask yourself, would you have reacted the way Annie and Kevin Jacobsen did?
I noticed a group of 6 or so men, and they were Middle Eastern, and they actually had their passports out in front of them. And I noticed the Arabic writing, and our 4.5-year-old son was pulling his carry-on. I said to this one gentleman, he had a goatee, and I said, you know, this might take a while as our son's trying to do this, so go ahead. And he was very polite, and I remember that so specifically because it made me feel comfortable. I began to notice that there were additional Middle Eastern men on the plane as well. That when I was out in the gate, I did not notice any other Middle Eastern men. I only noticed the 6. So I remember thinking, 6 plus more.
And at any given time, there were 2 or 3 of them standing in the back of the flight. There was a couple of Middle Eastern men standing in the middle of the flight. It just, the whole package deal just made me so uncomfortable.
Kevin turned to me and said, I think we should get off this flight. And we didn't.
What I noticed when the gentleman went to the restroom with the yellow T-shirt, passes his seat, and when he gets to the middle of the flight, he gives the thumbs up to 2 or 3 other Middle Eastern men sitting behind him, and then continues back to the rear of the flight. And there was one of the Middle Eastern men sitting in first class, and he was wearing sunglasses. He was also always standing right in front of the cockpit door.
I said, honey, I think you should talk to the flight attendant.
She said, we are aware of it. The pilot's aware of it. She said that we're passing notes to each other. Then when they were passing drinks, the flight attendant came over to me and she leaned down and she whispered and she said that there are air marshals sitting all around you, but don't tell anyone because I can get in trouble for that.
The captain made an announcement that the plane was cleared for landing and could everyone please take their seat. Everyone was seated, everyone was strapped in. And at this point I felt the fear was really palpable. And then 7 of the guys stood up in what appeared to be unison. Boom. They're up. 4 of them go to the lavatory that's just right directly in front of us, waiting consecutively. And from what I could tell, there were 3 waiting at the back bathroom. And I can see downtown Los Angeles. The seatbelt sign is on. It is so unusual. You've got 180 some odd passengers on that plane, and every single one of them is seated, except for 7 Middle Eastern men who have been acting really strangely for 4.5 hours.
I actually accepted that we are not going to make it back to LA safely.
I mean, I was just overwhelmed with fear. I was absolutely overwhelmed with fear. And I looked across to the man in the yellow shirt, and he reached inside of his shirt, and he started to pull something out. And he pulled out this little red book. It was maybe 4 or 5 inches tall and very thin. And he opened it up, and he read a few pages, and then he closed it, and then he put it back down in his shirt, so it was tucked into his shorts. And the guys are going into the bathroom slowly, and he does this 3 or 4 more times. When the last guy comes out of the bathroom, and you know, I'm really thinking like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going, come on, guys, sit down. You know, I got my son next to me. The last guy comes out, and he goes up to the guy in the yellow shirt, and he goes like this, and then he says no, and I don't know what that meant.
I just started writing, you know, because I was just panicking, and I just started journaling, and I had to have some outlet. And this is one of the things that that to me was the toughest thing. This is one thing I wrote: God, I'm just afraid that I'm not going to see home again, and that I'm not going to see my son grow up. And I'm also terrified of dying a painful death. I'm terrified that I'm not going to be able to protect my son and my family.
Very remarkable. Now, we've got Annie and Kevin Jacobsen with us right now. But first, we want to read you a statement from Northwest Airlines regarding the incident that the Jacobsens described. Northwest officials say Flight 327 from Detroit to Los Angeles on June 29th landed normally. We are working with the Federal Air Marshal Service and the TSA regarding customer statements about the flight. In the interest of security, we are not commenting further. But with me now to tell more of their story, Annie and Kevin Jacobsen. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And we've heard part of your story. Annie, why don't you tell us what happened when your plane landed in Los Angeles?
When we landed, Joe, there was a bank of guys in blue suits up against the flight jetway. And we kind of got out of the area and then stopped and looked back, and we saw the federal air marshals that had been on board the flight kind of maneuver these 14 Middle Easterners off to the side. And then it was Kevin's idea to go and give our statements to the FBI. He felt that was really important.
Now, when did you first get the sense on the flight that something might be wrong?
I got the sense, well, I was uncomfortable with the additional 8 men. I mean, the 6 men, I thought they're fine, they're a group. And then as we sat and we watched these men board and suddenly there were 8 more, it made me aware. But I really got uncomfortable when the flight was up in the air and these guys were going up and down the aisles.
Annie, what would you say to those watching you tonight and hearing your story that aren't convinced that you were ever in danger? They may say, gee, well, what's wrong? Why can't 14, 15 Arab men all fly on the same flight?